Welcome to Coaching in Session.
where limits end and growth begins.
Hosted by Michael Rearden.
This is your space to challenge the ordinary
Unlock your potential.
and step boldly into your next chapter.
Your mindset journey continues.
Welcome, Vanita Prisha Daryanani to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing well. You have such a beautiful, unique name, and it is difficult for my tongue to pronounce. If you could, can you say your name for everyone so it is perfect for the record?
Yep, it's Vanita Prisha Daryanani, and you did a great job.
Thank you so much for your positive enforcement. It's what we need in the world today because the work that you do is helping people with that type of mindset. You are a life coach and you help people with the power of choice. This idea where people are living in a very fixated mind, where they're thinking that their circumstances or their destiny or their life is only just one box or one path. But today, our conversation is going to be exploring the possibilities of what people can choose to live rather than what they are living. And I am just so excited to have a conversation with you today. If you could, can you tell the world who you are, what you do, and of course, how you help people?
Yes, so you can call me Vanita. I live in Ghana. I'm a life coach. So after I graduated from university as a physiotherapist, I moved to Ghana. And over here, I had a world of opportunities and I decided to play with that and did physiotherapy for a while. And then I went into business because that's kind of what all people from my cast do, I'll say. And then that brought me to an understanding that I had to do something that I really wanted to do. And then I decided to explore my mind and figure out why I've made certain choices in my life, what determined those choices. And that brought me to life coaching. So, in the process of being coached by someone else, I was just fascinated to know that, gosh, we always pick the path of least resistance, isn't it? The thing that feels the safest. And even though, like, I am a risk taker, but that's just who I am. But at the same time, the reason why I was taking certain risks were not making sense. So now, after delving into life coaching, I decided I had to be a coach because I have to impact people the same way my coach impacted me. And so that's what I do. Now I go out, I work with corporates. I've created like weekly motivations for them to gain more self awareness on how they're working in their companies. I do it with families as well. I provide workshops, mini 20-minute workshops that families can use to talk to each other. And then I go into different companies and I work with chosen staff. And yeah, I'm just going out and spreading this power of choice and knowing that we all have a choice at any given moment. Even if we're worked up, we've still got a choice. And that's just a message I want to keep spreading all the time to people.
Perfect. Now, I'm going to ask this. This could be anything that you want it to be, but I want to ask like your personality or persona. For example, I'm very stubborn. I'm stubborn. I'm very spicy. Is like a good word. My daughter, for example, she's only one, but she's rebellious. So I call her rebel, and she always starts smiling and laughing. If you had to give yourself a persona or a trait or an identity that is just could be like one word, what would that be?
Can I say two words?
Of course.
Yeah. A kind lion.
Mm,
Yeah.
why?
For a very long time, I was a lion. So I thought that I had to be really fierce and like really grab opportunities and be a little bit aggressive. And then when I was in Kenya, I just saw this beautiful lioness and she was just sitting there calm. And I thought, wow, two of them can exist at the same time. And that completely blew my mind in the sense that we know, but we don't really know until we know. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, so that's why I believe I'm a kind lion because I can be really fierce in terms of things that I'm really passionate about. And I can be really aggressive, but at the same time, to keep that humbleness, humility, and the kindness and the empathy is so important for me in life, you know? The
Yeah.
dualities can exist. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a saying I'm going to teach my kids because I believe there should be some level of quotes that parents should instill into their kids, some level of wisdom. For example, an old adage for the boomers, money doesn't grow on trees. So we have a whole bunch of people growing up thinking that money is scarce. So they have that scarce mindset of money. So they're working a 9 to 5 job, they hit a rat race, they get stuck in a lifestyle and they can never get out of it. They're not taught wealth, they're not taught riches, they're just taught survival. And it's that quote that really holds roots to a lot of their thinking where if you would give them something else to think about, a new idea or ideology, then they can start to be more flexible with their mind. And the quote that I want to share with my kids, and it's nice because I only have two right now and I only want two, but if I get more, whatever. But the thing I'm going to leave with my son is to love what you fight for. And for my daughters, fight for what you love. Right? We have heard these ideas in movies and just regular life, but there's some true meaning behind why he gets that one and she gets this one, where I believe that you have to understand what you're fighting for. You have to understand what you're protecting. And if we know the nature of what lionesses do and what lions do, they have different roles, they have different aspects to them. Yes, they can be fierce, they can be dangerous, but then at the same time, they can be kind. I'm sure you have seen videos of the lions going into the cars where people are on the safari and they're over there rubbing up on them. And this is to show that they're not these animals that are just beasts, that are just demons, that are just devastators, right? They are creatures that are filled with exuberance of life. And what I find in most people is that they don't find the balance of being kind and being fair and then enjoying the simple aspects, the small aspects of life. Everything is just struggle, everything is just pain, everything is just hardship, everything is just why me? How can people start to change their mindset or their thinking to be in more in the line of that kind lion?
So yesterday I had a workshop, okay, and while I was preparing for it, I was researching a lot about our autonomic nervous system and our parasympathetic nervous system. And like 500 years ago, we are built, right, to if we hear something, we feel the anxiety and then we run. And now we're fast forward in today's day and age, and now we react like that when we receive an email. Like we feel that same anxiety that we just want to run or fight or flee. And I think it all boils down to the fact that what is really important to you. And so the conversations that we have with our kids is not about that. Like what's really important to you and why are you making these decisions on fighting for what you love or loving like what you fight for. You're doing it just because of this you get a thrill, right? When you're feeling that autonomic nervous system kick into gear. And so we chase this high. And a lot of it boils down to how we define all these things in life. Like when you say fight for what you love, the fight, what does a fight really even mean? Like, what does it look like for you? And we don't really have these conversations with people. Like, you're not going to go to your friend and be like, what does okay mean for you? They'll be like, yeah, I'm okay. And so I think it all boils down to how we decide we want to define it for our kids. And that itself is showing kindness, isn't it? Like kindness and empathy and the freedom to pick what that means for us. So I love what you said. You give them the phrases and then at the same time allow them to redefine it for themselves. A lot of the time we get stuck into these sayings as to how our parents see it, right? And that's where my fierceness comes out because I want to advocate for them to redefine it for themselves. Hey, you have the power. When money doesn't go on trees, well, why don't you define how you want that to mean, what you want that to mean for you? And I think that's where we really have to be fierce and be advocating for people to kind of feel what they really want to feel and make it to be their own and really empower them to take them and be like, when my dad was telling me that, that's what he meant. And now that's why I have to survive and work a 9 to 5 job. No, maybe he really meant that you should be mindful and treat it as something that's really precious, that can give you opportunities. And then maybe people won't have such bad relationships with money. And I've kind of gone off on a tangent, but I just think we need to have that fierceness of redefining these things for us and the kindness to say that, hey, we should be kind to ourselves in doing that.
Definitely. Our conversation is definitely a journey. So don't feel as if you're going too far this way or too far that way. You are going exactly where we need to be. And just going back to the whole things that our parents leave us, like little bits of wisdom. My father, he said, handle your business. He said, handle your business. And that can mean many different things, right? If you have to protect someone, handle your business. If you have to pay the bills to support your family, handle your business. If you're not succeeding and you have to win, handle your business. So there's many different aspects to it, but it's all about what you want to make it. As you said, right? They define their own meaning. And I'm not going to be there to define what it truly means for them. They get to decide what that is because kids are amazing, where they will look at you and they will learn more from how you are as a person than what you say to them and what you teach them. For example, when my son was, he was 1 or 2, when he had all these toys around and I was just moving the toys with my feet, just like, so there's a little bit of path. It's just toys everywhere. And all of a sudden he started kicking the toys. I was like, oh my God. All right. So I started picking up the toys with my hand and I was leading by example. Now today he's in his terrible threes and he's a whole mess, but I welcome it. Right. It's just the journey of life. And what happens, I think, at pivotal points in development or in a person is that they get stuck in just a routine. They get stuck in just how things are going. Mom and dad are this way. They get to read you really well. My friends are this way. The school is this way. Work is this way. So it's the routine sometimes can become very mundane. And I understand that the routine can feel safe, it can feel secure, but it can also be a prison for many people. How do you help individuals break out of their routine or their systems that they have built for themselves to keep them safe and secure?
Yes, change can be really scary. And the first thing is the person has to want to move from that routine. And if they're really happy in the routine, it's about challenging their idea on whether they feel like they have the resources to change out of that routine, to break out of the routine. So it's a lot of mindset work. We think about, okay, what makes it feel safe? And what are the resources that are there within you that help you to create this environment? Usually it's the thing that first felt the most dangerous and make us feel safe, which then become the most dangerous place to be because then you're not evolving. And I do believe that we want to keep evolving. And I do believe also in Maslow's hierarchical needs, where at the end of the day, you do want to leave a legacy. I feel like a lot of the people I've interacted with do want to create an impact on someone. And if you're stuck in where you are, is that really gonna happen? Are you really gonna get there? And it takes a lot of challenging people's ideas and beliefs. For example, if you have an idea of, okay, success for me is having a 9 to 5 job, and that's it. And then realizing that, hey, I actually have a value of learning. I'm not doing that in my current position. And then after 5 years, you call me again and you say, hey, I'm feeling stuck now and I don't really know why. You have to dive back into the values and see, okay, what's not being honored? Because that's usually why people, well, for me, have reached out. Because something in their life is not being honored. So we start by looking at the values and then going into the beliefs and reframing them and then pointing out the capabilities that they believe they have. Because I believe you're naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. I believe you could do anything you want to be and anything you want to do. But do you believe it? And so it's a lot of that's the whole thing with empowerment coaching. We challenge them. In fact, a lot of my clients can say I could be a little bit too blunt and call them out when I think that they're saying something that's not true and honest about themselves. But I think that really works because we're not brave and we don't say enough brave things to each other. And we can be really brave with each other without being harsh. We can just say what it really is. So, yeah, I think that helps them to move. All these things help people to move.
Yeah, I'm extremely blunt myself. If you want the sugar coating and the ice cream and the sweetness, get a different coach. I'm not that coach. So I just tell people, like, I'm going to tell you how it is, like it is, when it is. I'm not here to say, okay, let's baby you step by step. Yes, sure. There are coaches like that. You're just not me, right? I believe 100% honesty, what needs to be done right now, and transparency, right? Sure, you can say it different ways to make it seem a little bit more subtle, but I think sometimes saying this is no good can really wake you up. And I remember so many situations. I mean, I could talk about hundreds of stories, but the story I'm going to say is from college. From college when I had to redo a writing course. And it was a basic course. It was like a 089 course. It was no credits. And I was like, why am I even taking this course? And all of my family was like, you don't need to take this course. You're good. But I was like, if this is what they're saying I need to do, let me do it, right? Let me try to do this course. And even though I didn't get any credits, it was maybe the most influential course that I've taken my entire college career. Why? Why did a non accredited course changed me so much? It was because of the teacher there. She was extremely blunt, where you could have written the best essay. And I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I was the best person in the class. But this is to say that I still grew the most in that class because of all of the criticism she gave me. And I'm talking about when she gave me my paper back, there was not a section of my paper that was not in red ink. And I was like, what in the world is happening? This is before ChatGPT. This is before Grammarly. This is before all of the technology. This was like, all right, I'm going into the computer lab. I have Microsoft Word. I'm going to type this out. I'm going to reread it. And I got really good at it. And my writing reflects that today. But one of the things she taught me was that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to learn. It's okay to grow. And I developed certain strategies to make me even better at it. And I remember our final discussion where we had to have an interview before she approved you to go to the accredited courses. And she goes, I have no problem with you. You were great. You were phenomenal. Like you have shown so much growth. And I even thanked her because of all the things that she gave me. And she was always saying, I wish I could say that for everyone in the class. And even though that might feel like, I'm better than everyone else, it was something that really rang true to me. And it's something that I was thinking of a quote today that I can refer back to this, that life doesn't get easier. Life is always going to be the same. We just get stronger. So we get better. I got better at writing. I got better at forming paragraphs and sentences and punctuation because of what I'll tell you was when I was in elementary school, I didn't pay attention a lot when it came to English class. I was like, I can speak it. I want to daydream. I want to play video games, go outside. And when I get home, I don't want to worry about my English and grammar right now. Of course, I had to fix it on later, but it was something where I had to decide that I wanted this for myself. And I can't tell you how many people they kind of want something. And I always have this saying to people, I was like, either you want it or you kind of want it. What do you find that stops people from wholeheartedly giving every ounce of themselves to their purpose or to their why or to their cause?
I would say it's fear. Fear of failure, fear of change, fear of putting yourself out there and risking something that you don't know what could happen. I think fear drives a lot of our decisions. As you were sharing this story, it's so strange because this morning I was thinking of a teacher who did the same thing to me. And so I could completely relate. I just wanted to say that. It was a thought I had this really early morning. It was his birthday today. My teacher turned like 75 today. But I think when we decide that we're not going to be fearful and that narrative of failure, we're not going to allow it to come in. I think that changes quite a lot of things for us. Like when you're in elementary school and you get your marks back on a test and they don't tell you like, oh, how could you have done it differently? It's just like, hey, rote learn again and get all these things right. And your worth is determined on what you get on your score. And it's either A, B, C, or D. And from that age, like you were saying, we're not really taught to make mistakes or we are reprimanded for them. And how many people do you know still continue with this narrative? Like they do something wrong, especially I've seen a lot of women. They say one thing that might sound wrong, and oh my goodness, they're talking about it for weeks. You know that one time, like a few weeks ago, when I said that, okay, relax, be kind and gentle with yourself, and just forgive yourself, or learn from it. Learn what you could do differently next time. So I think the willingness and the fear and the um, knowing that you're capable, all these things, they contribute to why people don't do things and they're half do it. Because if you tell someone, actually, hey, what do you really want to do? I really want to do this, but I'm not too sure. They really want to do it. Where did the but come from? So I think we have a lot of brave individuals, but sometimes we hold ourselves back because of fear of failure.
Bravery is one of those things where if people were born with it, I can guarantee you that they'll lose it very quickly. And it's not because they were meant to lose it, it's just systematically, how many opportunities are we given in a day to be brave? Not enough, right? Sure, when we're younger, we have many opportunities to fall and get back up, right? When we're learning how to walk, when something happens in school, we get support typically to some degree. But to be brave, to stand up to a bully for someone else, to not be the target in the middle school, I mean, that's brave. And many people, they would rather say, okay, how can I get out of this unscathed? How can I be safe? And it goes back to how our brain is developed, where we want to be safe, we want to be secure, we want to be appreciated to some degree, we want to be desired. And as much of all of these things are wonderful, we still yearn for more. And this is the human nature. We want more, right? Typically, if you ask someone, like, are they good? They'll say, I'm good. But I was like, can you be better? It's like, oh, yeah, sure, I could be better. But what does better look for you? Do you need more money? Do you need more love? Do you need more affirmation, like in who you are as a person? Because if we look at certain generations of kids, every generation of kids will say something negative about their parents. And it's not that they didn't love the parents. For example, there are generations of kids that wish their parents said, I love you more versus, all right, hurry up and do this, blah, blah, blah. And then they spend money on Disney World and things like that. Oh, they should know I love them. But versus, I love you, right? Those words right there, that affirmation is like, that could mean everything to someone versus maybe someone who was growing up with that, they can have a negative side to saying, I wish my parents were not so much on me, being helicopter parents is, or somewhere along those lines. So there's always going to be one person that sees one side and then the other person sees the alternative, where there is no necessarily right way to raise a child or to live life. I think it's just as you go, you have to be able to pivot, you have to be able to adapt. And the word pivot, I think, is going to be the key there because I think a lot of people know they can pivot. A lot of people are willing to pivot, but then they have the fear to pivot as well. It's very similar to the fear, the willingness, and the knowing how, where they would rather see someone else do it to say, okay, it's more plausible than for them to be the first one. Now, when we start to look at first, we think of the word, or I think of the word leader, where people are number one, right? They have no one in front of them, they have a whole bunch of people behind them. All of those people behind them, they can either be pushing them forward, saying, keep on going, supporting them, or they could be the people in the air saying, oh, you can't do this, you'll never be anything great. And it's going to be challenging to listen to both of them and to choose one to say, okay, well, this person must be right. This person must be right, especially if you falter. If you fall back, you take a step back, this person was right. And then it's almost like they're afraid to get back up. They're afraid to try again. When someone fails in life, or when you have failed in life, what were ways or how do you help people realize that it's okay to fail once and then to get back up? Like, what is that motivation or that discipline that you have for them or for yourself?
But I'll give a personal example because I did have an experience where I had to close down a business that I loved and I worked very hard on it for 5 years. And it takes a narrative that has to be changed and worked on every single day. The first step is, of course, recognizing what you learned and how you grew as a person. And going back to that same example of that teacher who taught you the most, the same way that thing that you think you failed in is going to teach you the most. Like, you're going to remember it for the rest of your life as one of the proudest things you were able to ever do. So change the narrative, which means talking to yourself every day. Keep the lessons in the forefront. And so difficult to do, frankly, like when you're in it, because you're so used to having that negative self talk. There was one activity that they made us do in our course where we had to write a letter to ourselves and just rewrite our story. And I found that so impactful, like from another perspective, and seeing all these great things that you've done. And then keeping that on my table and rereading it when I could feel myself going back into, my gosh, I failed in my business. It takes so much effort. We always pick the path of least resistance. Our mind always does that. So it has to be an intentional act that we take every day. So that's all I can say, that please notice and be proud of yourself. I was in a yoga class last week and I just realized I hadn't said I was proud of myself for like the last 6 months. I just felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude towards myself. We never take the time out and just be like, hey, you're doing a great job at life. Why don't we do this? So important to do this for ourselves. So I think creating a practice where you can rewrite your narrative, tell yourself you appreciate yourself, and constantly be able to notice and catch the moments of when that negative, we call it saboteur voice, comes back in. These are really important ways to rewrite and push past the thought of what you think you failed at.
Speaking of yoga, I remember when I was in a vinyasa class years ago when I was living in Connecticut still. And we were toward the end of the class, and the instructor asked us to think of all of the people that we loved. And I thought about my mom, thought about my dad, or my grandmas, my siblings, some friends, colleagues. And after a while, she says, "Are you on the list?" And I said, "Wow, I wasn't." Like, I didn't think about it. Whereas like me, I wasn't even close to being on the list. It was the external. And I find that it can be extremely difficult for people to look at themselves and to say that I'm lovable, because they're always looking for things that are going to make it worthwhile for someone else to say, "Hey, I love this about you." So if we're a work in progress, we're not done yet. Can you live in a home that is being renovated, maybe in a corner or a section, or a house that's being built? Probably not, right? Because of code and regulations. So we think that we can't be here right now. So we're somewhere different. We're somewhere else. And I find that many people, they're absent in their thinking, where it's only partially there. Like the focus is just not fully there, where we can focus on something deeply and we can focus on something haphazardly. Where if we think of our phones, it's just a waste of time, where our thinking, even though it might seem to be there, like, okay, I'm scrolling, okay, I'm watching this video, oh, this is very nice. And then you do the next video, okay, this is very nice. But it's not really deep thinking, it's not really deep logic. And I find when it comes to people really getting down to it, like as yourself, I'm sure, when you had to write down and say, okay, what went wrong? What could be better? And looking at areas of improvement in all areas or aspects of your life, that could be extremely challenging because you're faced with the reality of who you are as a person. And most people, they don't want to deal with who they are. They would rather keep the skeletons in the closet. They would rather sweep everything under the rug, and they would rather keep the lights off so they don't see the imperfections. When an individual does this type of behavior, what would be the outcome? And what would be the alternative for them to see a better future for themselves?
I think the outcome would be that in always trying to seek validation from others and unable to, because it takes a certain level of bravery, doesn't it, to be able to look yourself in the mirror and be like, hey, this is who you really are. It's going to be sad place to be in terms of you're never really going to know how precious you really are. It's a disservice to the world. I think we all bring our uniqueness and we need to acknowledge that. So the outcome would just be that you would never really know. how wonderful and how great and what you're capable of. And I think you may be fine in that comfort zone. That may just be okay. But I do think you're doing a disservice to yourself by being stuck. At the same time, we were talking about safety in the beginning. I know it's really nice and safe to be where you've always been, but if you want to be bold and you want to be courageous and you want to take a stand for something, I think take a stand for yourself and get to know who you really are. You're going to feel like, you don't need to. I'll tell you something actually before I go into the next thought, that a lot of people are really afraid that when they do that, a lot of things are going to change, right? In the sense that when you look at yourself in the mirror and you realize who you are, it's going to cause disruption in everyone's life. For example, I used to have this metaphor of, if I really expose who I am to people, it'll be like a full arc explosion. Sorry, I know the times are tough right now. We shouldn't be talking like that. But it would be like a full explosion of like all the high rise buildings will be gone,
Mhm.
because that's how dangerous I could be if I show who I really am. When you bring kindness into the conversation and care into a conversation, you can still be who you really are and still have the same situation. So, going back to redefining all those things for yourself and how you want that to look, our architecture to look like, it's something so beautiful. Hey, I actually can design how much or how I expose myself to the people that I love. And it doesn't need to be a disruption, it can be a kind conversation between people. And that's real connection and true connection, not what we've been doing in the past of, hey, how are you? Fine, fine, good, great, thanks, see you later. So, yeah, I think we don't need to do this disservice to ourselves. I think we need to understand that we're really beautiful the way that we.
It's challenging for people to look at words like happiness, joy, fulfillment, purpose, why, drive, and to fully understand or comprehend what that means, especially if you're young. I can't tell you how much I've changed from when I was a teenager. Even though I might have thought I had a purpose, I had a why, I had a direction, and things felt good at the time. But of course, mindsets change, times change, people change. And change can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing, depending on which direction you're going. Where I think of this idea now, how would someone know that they are actually living true to the choices that they're making? Is it only temporary? Is it going to be something that's going to change with the decades or with as life spans? Or is it something where we can say that we know that happiness is a certain feeling, joy is a certain feeling, prestige or success is a certain feeling? Can we lump it into that? Or is it going to be something that's always going to be movable and flexible?
I think it boils down to values. We never have a value based conversation with our kids. It's just not there in any curriculum. Like, what do you really value? I think values don't shift too much in our lives. If we have a value for connection, it may show up differently in the sense that we may put connection as family in the age in our 30s, and connection in our teens are more about friends. But that value itself actually doesn't shift too much. We may gain more values, but the things that are basically important to us are still there within us. Drawing on something personal. So, my name before marriage was Vanita. And in our culture, we change our first name as well, our first name and our last name. And my mom used to say to me that when I was Vanita, I was this fiery person. I'm a typical, well, I don't know if you believe in star signs, but an Aries, typical fiery person. And when I got married, I completely changed and became really docile and very calm. And especially now with my two boys, I'm so calm that she doesn't understand where I got all this patience from. And I told her, well, it was always important for me to have good connections with the people around me. That didn't change. And what was needed at the time of my teens was for me to take that connection and use it as safety to be all of the rage of who I was as a teenager. And in my 30s or in my 20s when I was married, that connection turned out to be creating a good relationship with my family around me. So I think essentially those values don't really change much. But the problem is that we don't have that type of conversation with our kids. Hey, what's really important to you? Um, yeah, maybe money, but why? Is it because it gives you security? Okay, great. So actually, security is really important to you. What makes you feel secure? And when we do that, I think things could be very different for the next generation.
Yeah, very true. We have to understand that we are not people who should just what's it, protagonize or procrastinate, like changing the issues of the world, saying, "Oh, someone will get to it, or I'll get to it eventually." We have to be direct. We have to say, "Okay, if there's a problem, we fix it." If you have a roof leak, guess what? You're fixing the roof leak. You're not going to say, "I'll get to it when I can." Then you're gonna have a whole bunch of problems if you don't address it. If there is, let's say, a venomous snake in your living room, hey, he's not biting anyone right now. We'll leave it for another time. Where we have to look at if there is an issue, we have to be able to address the issue. And I understand there could be a fear there, cost for the roof, fear of getting bitten from the snake, where it's like, okay, well, let's just play it safe. But when you play it safe, though, in those regards, there's always going to be a stress on you. There's always going to be a worry on you. And that right there is going to eat at you and it's going to act as an anchor. It's going to act as a weight and it's going to stop you from propelling forward or to the life that you're looking at. Because you might know that you have a choice, but are you going to make a choice? Because we can wake up every morning knowing that we have a choice to be great or we have a choice to be regular. Why are we always choosing regular? It's something that we have to investigate. And our conversation today was definitely one of introspection and learning about oneself and how others are operating. This right here is an opportunity for people to look at their life and to say, I'm not living true to myself. What can I do today? I think there's improvements that can be made. Let me reach out for some help. There's something that I want to do before my final days. Let me start today. Like these conversations or these to dos can be done today. It's not something of eventually or procrastination. It's one of yes, not later, right now. And that could be the biggest step for a lot of people right now. And I want to learn a little bit about how people can reach out to you, Vanita, to learn how they can take that right now, how they can take the next steps. And then after you share that, please give us some final thoughts, some final words that we can walk away with and throughout our day today.
Yes, so I can be reached on my website, which is www.broadenminds.com. And I love what you said. And so I want to leave you with this. If you're feeling stuck or if you're feeling like you don't know what to do right now, the only thing you need to ask yourself is what is the most important thing for you right now? Let's remember to be kind with ourselves and also be fierce with what we want. If you can't be fierce, just be kind to yourself. It's okay. That's just what you want right now. I think we need to give ourselves some more grace. So, what's the most important thing for you right now? Hopefully, that will carry you throughout the next moments of your day. If it's kindness, gentleness, to do action, fix the roof, get the snake out of the house, please do it because that's what you need to do right now. So, that's it. Yes. So, it's been really enjoyable. Thank you so much.
Of course. We had a wonderful conversation. I'm so excited for a lot of the clips because I was like taking notes. I was like, oh my God, this was really good. Just like little part. I mean, the whole conversation was great, phenomenal, but it was so many little bits that if you just make that an affirmation, oh my goodness, it can change your life. So I encourage everyone to re listen to this episode. If it really didn't truly ring to you the first time, it will the second time, it will the third time. And I can't tell you how many times I've listened to certain episodes, read certain books, clips, or whatever, and it's just because this is what I was yearning for. So ask yourself, did your soul get touched today? Was there something that was being filled within you? It was very similar to how you can have an empty bucket and you start filling it up with water. And at the end of our episode, 40 plus minutes, you might say, well, the bucket's not there yet. Fill it up again, listen to it again. And then when you're ready, when that bucket is full, check down below, check out Vanita's links, check out her website. You don't have to worry about spelling, it's just a click away. We have learned so much from you today, Vanita, and I want to thank you for the work that you're doing and for helping people figure out in their life that there's a choice and they just have to be brave enough to make it. in closing, again, thank you for all your work. Wonderful conversation.
Thank you. Appreciate it.